Welcome to the debate.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're diving into our Echoed Eras series, and we're focusing on January of 1993, specifically the baffling case of David Glenn Lewis.
Yeah, it's an incredibly haunting case.
It really is. Picture this. It's Super Bowl Sunday. David's VCR is actively recording the Dallas Cowboys playing in the big game. Fresh turkey sandwiches are sitting completely untouched in his refrigerator.
Right, and there's laundry queued up in the washing machine.
Exactly. His wedding ring and his watch are resting quietly on the kitchen counter. Yet, at that exact moment, David is walking down a pitch-black highway 1,600 miles away in Moxee, Washington.
Which is just geographically jarring.
Completely. He's wearing military camouflage fatigues he didn't even own, and he's just moments away from a violent, fatal hit and run.
I mean, it is easily one of the most chilling, just incomprehensible juxtapositions in modern history. You have this highly respected Texas lawyer, a former Moore County judge, a family man deeply embedded in his community.
Yeah.
And he is completely ripped from this intensely mundane, safe domestic scene and just dropped into a chaotic tragedy.
And he actually remained a John Doe for 11 years.
Wow, 11 years.
Yeah, it wasn't until DNA identification in 2004 that the Moxee John Doe was finally given his name back. But the thing is, getting his name back only deepened the mystery of the case files.
It really did. It forces us to confront the central question, which is, how do we interpret an entirely chaotic timeline?
Right. And for me, representing the psychological side of this debate, I'll state my position right off the bat. When I look at the official case files, I don't see a criminal conspiracy or a coordinated extraction. I see the terrifying, sudden unraveling of a human mind.
Okay.
The evidence heavily points to a severe psychological break, specifically a dissociative fugue state that completely fractured his reality.
Well, I hear that. And I understand why the bizarre nature of his travel leads you there. But my position is that I just can't ignore the tangible, physical anomalies. The timeline is chaotic, sure, but nestled inside that chaos are extremely specific irregularities.
Such as the financial stuff?
Exactly. A mysterious $5,000 cash deposit, missing legal documents tied to a massive lawsuit, unexplained plane ticket purchases, and, well, the fact that he was found across the country in clothes clearly not his own.
Right. To me, that doesn't spell a spontaneous psychological break. It strongly suggests external coercion, manipulation, or foul play.
I get why you'd see it that way. But let's start right at the epicenter of the disappearance, though. That house in Dumas, Texas.
The domestic scene.
Yeah, the interrupted domestic scene is the bedrock of my framework here. The VCR running, the sandwiches untouched, and the fridge. I mean, think about the psychology of an interruption.
Okay, go on.
If professional adversaries or, extortionists were forcing him out of his home, they would not wait politely for him to assemble turkey sandwiches.
That's fair.
Nor would they care about making sure the VCR was set to record the Super Bowl. The sheer mundanity of those interrupted tasks points to an internal trigger. It wasn't an external extraction. It was an internal snap. See, I look at that exact same scene and I draw the complete opposite conclusion.
Really? How so?
Well, an external threat actually produces the exact same frozen-in-time environment as a psychological break. If someone knocks on your door with a weapon or unexpectedly confronts you in your hallway, you absolutely do not have time to finish your sandwich or power down your electronics.
I suppose that's true, but...
You are under immediate, overwhelming duress. The scene at the house proves a sudden, urgent exit, but it doesn't prove the threat was only in his head.
But if it's an immediate physical threat, how do you explain the wedding ring and the watch left on the counter?
That implies a deliberate divestment. People fleeing a home invasion don't pause to take off their jewelry. We don't know he took them off at the exact moment he fled, though. He could have taken them off to wash his hands before making the sandwiches, right before the interruption occurred.
Okay, that's a possibility.
And furthermore, look at what was happening outside that house in the days leading up to this. On Sunday, January 31st, a deputy sheriff witnessed a man strongly resembling David standing across the street from the Potter County Courthouse.
Right, the photography incident?
Yes, he was photographing the building or specifically photographing his own red Ford Explorer parked in front of it.
Exactly. That is a textbook manifestation of clinical paranoia. He is documenting his own vehicle because his fractured mind is convinced he is being surveilled.
Or it illustrates genuine surveillance and real-world threats. If he was actually being monitored or stalked, photographing the area around his car is a highly rational act.
You think he was building a case?
Yes, he is trying to leave a trail or build evidence against whoever is threatening him. We can't just slap the label of delusion onto his actions when we have documented proof of a $3 million conflict of interest lawsuit hanging over his head.
The lawsuit.
It's crucial. He was the final key deposition in that case, and the specific legal paperwork related to that exact lawsuit was the only thing missing from his home and office.
I have a really hard time buying the lawsuit angle, honestly, when you look at the mechanics of the civil litigation involved here.
Why is that?
Well, David's own attorney, Thomas Kelly, went on the record describing this specific lawsuit as relatively insignificant.
Subjective, but okay.
But more importantly, let's look at how the liability worked. It was covered entirely by malpractice insurance. David had zero personal financial liability.
Right.
So why would professional adversaries use such a convoluted, cross-country method to eliminate a witness in a low-stakes civil suit where the payout is already insured? It just doesn't make sense.
Because human beings and plaintiffs don't always operate with perfect, emotionless efficiency. The subjective opinion of a defense attorney that a suit is insignificant doesn't mean the people suing him felt the same way.
I mean, sure, emotions run high in litigation.
Exactly. People have been intimidated or harmed over far less than a $3 million grievance. But even if I concede the lawsuit might be a red herring, you still have to explain the money.
The $5,000 deposit.
Right. The day before the Super Bowl, a $5,000 cash deposit is made into his bank account from an unknown source.
Yeah, that is a bizarre detail. Let's put that in perspective.
In 1993, that is the purchasing power of well over $11,000 today. Where did a Texas lawyer whose private practice was reportedly struggling suddenly get $5,000 in cash on a Saturday?
It's definitely a lot of cash.
And combine that with the Dallas taxi driver who later came forward. He recalled driving a man perfectly matching David's description from a hotel to the airport. The driver specifically noted the man was looking over his shoulder, extremely nervous.
Right, the wad of hundreds.
Yes, he paid his fare by peeling bills off of a massive wad of $100 bills. This screams of an extortion payment, a payoff, or a relocation fund provided by an external handler.
It definitely sounds sinister if you view it through a true crime lens, I'll give you that.
Thank you.
But in the context of a severe psychological episode, specifically a manic state or a dissociative fugue, massive financial irregularities are actually a known symptom.
Really? To that extent?
Absolutely. An individual in the grips of a paranoid crisis doesn't just sit still. Their internal logic dictates they are in mortal peril, so they frantically liquidate assets, pull cash advances, or move money around erratically.
To fund an escape.
Exactly, to fund an escape from imaginary demons. The wad of hundreds could simply be a manic, panicked withdrawal.
I understand that extreme stress alters behavior, but let's talk about the logistics of that escape. I really struggle with the sheer executive function required to execute the journey you're describing.
The air travel.
Yeah. You are suggesting his mind is so fractured that he sheds his identity, leaves his wedding ring next to his turkey sandwiches, and wanders aimlessly. Yet somehow, this completely disoriented man manages to navigate the complex logistics of 1993 air travel.
It does sound contradictory at first.
Right, because he's buying a plane ticket from Amarillo to Dallas. Then we have records of a ticket from Los Angeles back to Dallas. He is navigating major international hubs like DFW, securing taxis, managing large sums of cash, and eventually transporting himself to a highly remote rural area in Yakima County.
Yeah.
A complete break from reality doesn't usually allow for sustained, coherent travel planning.
That's a very common misconception, actually, about how the brain functions during a dissociative fugue.
How so?
When we say fugue state, we aren't talking about delirium or dementia where all cognitive ability degrades. It is fascinating and terrifying how the brain compartmentalizes trauma. Think of it like a computer rebooting in safe mode.
Okay, safe mode. I'm following you.
Right, so in safe mode, the core operating system still runs. It handles the basic background processes perfectly fine. In human terms, that's your procedural memory.
The how-to memory.
Exactly. Your brain still knows how to drive a car, it knows how to read an airport departure board, it knows how to hand a teller cash for a ticket. But the user profile, the episodic memory, the personal identity, the trauma of being David Lewis, the struggling judge under immense pressure, that file is completely locked out.
Wow.
That's why people in fugue states can travel thousands of miles and even hold down temporary jobs without knowing who they are.
Safe mode. That's a really great analogy.
Thanks. And, well, further, in 1993, flying was fundamentally different than it is today. Pre-9/11, you could walk up to a counter, hand over a wad of cash, and buy a ticket under the name John Smith without ever showing a photo ID.
That is true.
So the chaotic routing we see, the Amarillo to Dallas ticket, the Los Angeles to Dallas ticket, that doesn't show a coordinated kidnapping. It shows a disorganized mind in flight mode bouncing around the country's transit hubs like a pinball.
Okay, I'll concede the point on procedural memory and the lax security of 1993 airports. A person could theoretically ghost their way across the country.
Exactly.
But even if he is in a fugue state, that journey has to end somewhere. And the way his journey ended in Moxee, Washington, is exactly why I cannot accept the purely psychological theory.
You're referring to the state of his body when he was found?
Yes. Let's look at the incredibly specific physical artifacts discovered by the Washington State Patrol. When David was struck and killed on Route 24, which is a pitch-black, two-lane highway, he was wearing military-style camouflage fatigues and work boots.
Right.
His wife, Karen, was adamant he did not own those clothes. He had never owned anything like them. But the absolute linchpin for me is the eyeglasses.
The glasses in the pocket.
Exactly. David had distinctively thick eyeglasses. He had incredibly poor eyesight. Without them, he was profoundly visually impaired. Yet, when investigators secured his effects, those crucial glasses were found tucked into the pockets of the unfamiliar camouflage fatigues.
It is strange.
It defies logic. I value basic common sense here. A severely visually impaired man does not voluntarily take off his glasses and shove them into a pocket while walking down a pitch-black rural highway at 10:30 at night.
Unless he feels the glasses themselves are a threat.
Come on. Even if you forget your name, you don't forget that you can't see the ground in front of you. The physical impairment doesn't go away in a fugue state.
Well,
To me, the removal of the glasses paired with the highly specific clothing, camouflage is literally designed to help someone blend into the dark. That strongly implies external control. He was dressed by someone else.
or
Or he was actively fleeing an immediate physical threat in the woods, lost his glasses in a struggle, and shoved them in his pocket as he blindly scrambled up onto the road to flag down a car.
I'll admit, the glasses in the pocket is the detail that trips up almost everyone who looks at this case. It seems utterly counterintuitive.
Right.
But let's dig into the neuroscience and physiology of what is happening to his body at that exact moment. We established that he might be in a profound state of paranoia, shedding his identity.
Okay.
He already divested himself of his ring, his watch, and his driver's license back in Texas. The glasses are just the final symbol of his past life.
But it's not a symbol, it's a medical necessity.
It is, but you are assuming his sensory processing is functioning normally. In cases of severe delirium, paranoia, and especially hypothermia, and remember, it was freezing in Washington that night, sensory gating fails.
Sensory gating?
Yeah. The brain becomes completely overwhelmed by input. The glare of approaching headlights on thick lenses can cause physical pain or extreme disorientation in an altered mental state. He might have ripped them off simply because his overloaded brain couldn't process the visual information.
I don't know.
And as for the camouflage, adopting bizarre new clothing makes perfect psychological sense. A paranoid mind believes it needs to hide. Walking into an army surplus store, buying camo, and putting it on is exactly what someone trying to become invisible would do.
But look at what you're doing here. You are taking each piece of evidence and requiring a separate, highly specific psychological anomaly to explain it away.
Am I?
Yes. To explain the domestic scene, he has an internal snap. To explain the missing files, he suddenly fixates on them and destroys them. To explain the $5,000, he goes manic. To explain the cross-country travel, he's in a fugue state relying on procedural memory. And to explain the glasses, he's suffering from sensory overload and hypothermia.
Psychology is incredibly complex. It rarely fits into a neat, singular box.
True, but the external coercion theory explains all of these anomalies with one stroke.
One stroke?
Yes. He was involved in a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The paperwork for that suit is the only thing missing from his home. He receives a sudden, massive influx of $5,000.
Right.
He is seen highly nervous, looking over his shoulder, paying in cash. He is flown across the country by private charter or coerced on a commercial flight, dressed in clothes designed to make him hard to spot, deprived of his ability to see clearly, and pushed out onto a dark road. That is a single, continuous narrative of foul play.
A continuous narrative, sure, but one that completely falls apart when you look for a perpetrator.
How so?
Law enforcement investigated the foul play angle exhaustively. Detective James Smith and the Amarillo police turned his life upside down.
They looked into the lawsuit, they looked into the death threats he received years earlier while serving as a judge.
And they found zero credible links. The idea that a corporate litigator or some shadow organization hired a hit squad to fly a Texas lawyer to rural Washington state, dress him in camo, and then just let him get hit by a random civilian in a Chevrolet Camaro. It's incredibly cinematic, but it completely lacks empirical backing.
A lack of evidence of a specific perpetrator does not equal a lack of foul play.
It's a pretty big hole, though.
Listen, the hit-and-run driver in the Camaro was almost certainly incidental. A tragic, random accident that occurred while David was fleeing his actual captors.
You think he was running from them when he got hit?
Yes. The motorist who found him moments before he died said he was wandering the two-lane highway completely disoriented, waving his arms. He could have just escaped whoever brought him to Yakima. We know the Yakima Air Terminal is incredibly close to where he was found. It is entirely plausible. Handlers flew him there, he broke free, ran into the freezing night in the clothes they provided him, took off his glasses so they wouldn't catch the moonlight or reflect flashlights, and stumbled onto the highway where he was accidentally struck.
But again, you are forced to inject phantoms into the timeline. Handlers, captors, secret flights. What we know for a fact is that David Glenn Lewis was a man under immense, compounding, very real pressure.
That is definitely true.
He had recently lost his bid for the 69th District Court judgeship, which is a massive psychological blow to a high-achieving, proud man. Business at his private law firm was reportedly drying up. He was named as a defendant in a massive lawsuit. He was a Sunday school teacher, a former judge, a pillar of the community.
It's a lot to carry.
The sheer, crushing weight of maintaining that perfect public facade while managing intense private anxieties is enough to fracture anyone's mind.
I absolutely don't deny the pressure he was under. I simply argue that pressure makes a person incredibly vulnerable to exploitation. If someone approaches a desperate, financially strained man with a threat or a bizarre way out, he might take it.
But when a brilliant, highly functioning mind snaps, it doesn't just power down. It misfires. It creates bizarre, highly complex, yet fundamentally illogical patterns.
Illogical patterns.
Yes, that is the only way to explain the truly chaotic movements we see. Hurrying through the Amarillo airport with no luggage on Friday, driving back to the Dumas courthouse on Saturday, taking pictures of the courthouse on Sunday, buying tickets to Dallas, then LA, then Dallas again.
It is chaotic.
He is a man trapped in a terrifying feedback loop of his own mind's making. He is frantically executing a survival plan against a threat that exists entirely within his own head.
Behavior. But I always come back to the physical evidence, the money, the specific legal files, the clothes.
Right.
If he was simply fleeing imaginary demons, why did he take the specific files related to the $3 million lawsuit? Why did he leave everything else in his home perfectly intact, down to the laundry in the machine and the turkey sandwiches, but make absolute sure those documents were gone?
Because in his paranoid state, the lawsuit became the focal point of his delusion. The documents weren't stolen by an extortionist, they were taken or destroyed by David himself because he believed they were the physical source of his peril.
That is an interesting interpretation, but it remains heavily reliant on assumptions about his internal mental state, which we simply cannot medically verify post-mortem.
That's true.
What we can definitively verify is that $5,000 materialized in his account out of thin air. We can verify he was in a state he had absolutely no ties to, wearing clothes he didn't own, with his vital eyewear tucked away in a pocket. The anomalies are just too sharp and too distinct to be sanded down into a general diagnosis of a mental breakdown.
And this is exactly why the David Glenn Lewis case has haunted investigators, his family, and the public for over 3 decades. It is probably time for us to summarize our positions in light of this discussion.
Sounds good.
From my perspective, the sheer chaos of the timeline serves as a deeply tragic testament to human fallibility and the sudden, devastating unraveling of the brain. The abandoned sandwiches, the wedding ring left on the counter, the lack of luggage, the erratic, ping-ponging flights. These are not the machinations of a vast criminal conspiracy. They are the desperate, confused actions of a man who simply lost his tether to reality, entered a fugue state, and wandered into the dark.
And from my stance, while I deeply appreciate the mechanics of the psychological framework you've laid out, the specific, tangible anomalies are simply too convenient to dismiss as the random coincidences of a broken mind.
Right.
The missing legal documents tied explicitly to a high-stakes lawsuit, the sudden $5,000 cash deposit, the Dallas taxi driver's account of the nervous man with a wad of hundreds, and the profoundly strange military clothing. They all point instead to a sinister, unresolved external force. The timeline is murky, yes, but the physical artifacts left behind suggest manipulation and foul play, not just madness.
We clearly have areas of continued disagreement, specifically on how to weigh the psychological clues left at the home against the stark financial and legal irregularities. And I think that reflects the true value of considering multiple perspectives.
Absolutely.
Complex material, especially a mystery as profound as the disappearance and death of David Glenn Lewis, often requires dual lenses, both the psychological and the investigative frameworks, to fully appreciate the depth of the tragedy.
I completely agree. Every answer we finally got in 2004 with his DNA identification only generated 10 new questions about the logistics of how he actually got there. There is so much more to explore within these baffling case files.
Indeed. We leave the final judgment to you, the listener. As we sign off, I want you to think back to that kitchen in Dumas, Texas. The VCR whirring, methodically recording a football game for a man who is already hundreds of miles away. Stepping out onto a cold, dark highway, we have to ask ourselves, what truly possesses a person to walk away from their own life?
Such a haunting question.
Before we go, we want to hear from you. Drop your theories in the comments below. Do you think it was a tragic mental break, or was there a deeper conspiracy? Make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you enjoyed the discussion. Thanks for joining us.